2-year-old girl adorably steals popcorn from Barron Trump. His reaction will melt your heart. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. And don't miss the end of the video. It all started during the premiere of a highly anticipated movie in the heart of Los Angeles in December 2023. Barron Trump, admired by millions for his humility and kindness, was sitting quietly in the front row, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Little did he know that the most memorable encounter of the evening wouldn't come from fans or photographers, but from an unexpected source: a fearless, popcorn-loving toddler. Sophie Bennett, a curious 2-year-old with golden curls and big blue eyes, attended the premiere with her mother Emily. Emily, a single mom in her early 30s and an aspiring screenwriter, had managed to secure 2 tickets through a lucky industry connection. She brought Sophie along, hoping for a memorable evening, but not in the way it unfolded. Sitting just 3 seats away from Barron, Sophie became mesmerized by the buttery aroma of the popcorn in his lap. Unbothered by the sea of adults and flashing cameras, she waddled over to him mid-scene and, without hesitation, reached into his popcorn bucket. The crowd froze for a second, unsure of what would happen. Barron's reaction? He broke into the warmest, most genuine smile anyone had ever seen. Instead of being annoyed, he leaned down, whispered something that made Sophie giggle, and offered her the bucket. What no one knew was that Sophie's innocent gesture triggered a flood of memories for Barron, a bittersweet echo of moments he had once shared with his younger sister when she was a toddler, long before life became so complicated. Emily, mortified, rushed to retrieve Sophie, apologizing profusely, but Barron stopped her. "She's fine," he said with that signature calmness, crouching down to Sophie's level. "Popcorn tastes better when it's shared." His words, simple yet profound, felt like a metaphor for the kind of person he was, a man who found beauty in small human connections. What followed was a surreal sequence of events that no one at the premiere could have anticipated. Sophie's tiny act of bravery somehow broke the ice in a room full of guarded Hollywood elites. People started laughing, clapping, and even sharing their own snacks. For Emily, standing inches away from a global figure, her heart raced, not because of his fame, but because of the unspoken kindness in his eyes. As the night continued, Barron and Emily found themselves talking, not as a celebrity and a fan, but as 2 people navigating life's unpredictable twists. Sophie, oblivious to the magic unfolding, sat on Barron's lap, munching on popcorn, completely at ease. Barron couldn't take his eyes off Sophie as she giggled and shoved tiny fistfuls of popcorn into her mouth. For a fleeting moment, her laughter and innocence reminded him of someone he had lost, his younger sister, who had passed away from leukemia years ago. She had been about Sophie's age when Barron first taught her how to share popcorn during their movie nights. That bittersweet memory washed over him like a wave, and his throat tightened. Emily noticed his expression falter for just a split second. "Are you okay?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible over the hum of conversations around them. Barron nodded, offering a faint smile. "She reminds me of someone." "I miss her," Barron said, his voice carrying a tenderness that was both comforting and heartbreaking. Emily didn't press further, sensing the weight of his words. As the premiere continued, Barron remained beside Emily and Sophie, chatting as if they were old friends. Emily, who had been struggling as a single mom ever since Sophie's father walked out before her birth, felt an unexplainable ease in his presence. There was something about Barron, his humility, his warmth, that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. When the event ended, Barron insisted on walking them out to their car, shielding them from the swarm of paparazzi waiting outside. As they stood in the parking lot under the glow of streetlights, Emily hesitated before speaking. "I don't know if you'll remember this night in a week or a month," she began, her voice trembling, "but you've made my daughter's night, and mine too." Barron looked down at Sophie, who had fallen asleep in her mother's arms, clutching a tiny handful of popcorn. "I'll remember," he said quietly. "Moments like this, they're why I keep going." Emily felt tears sting her eyes. "You have no idea how much that means to us." Barron paused, as if weighing his next words carefully. If you ever need someone to talk to or just want to take Sophie to the movies again. He handed her a folded piece of paper. Give me a call. Emily unfolded the paper after he walked away. It wasn't just a number, it was an address. A handwritten note read, "To new beginnings, let's keep sharing the popcorn." In the days that followed, Emily debated whether to reach out. She didn't want to come across as another fan trying to insert herself into his life. But one night, as Sophie clutched her stuffed bunny and asked about the popcorn man, Emily made a decision. She sent a letter to the address, pouring her heart out. She wrote about her struggles as a single mom, the dreams she'd had to put on hold, and the inexplicable comfort she'd found in their brief encounter. She didn't expect a reply, but 2 weeks later, a small package arrived at her door. Inside was a handwritten note from Barron. "Life has been hard for both of us, it seems. Maybe we can help each other make it a little easier. How about popcorn on Saturday, just the three of us?" Emily sat down, her hands trembling, tears streaming down her face. She wasn't sure if this was the start of something extraordinary or just a fleeting kindness from a man who had seen more pain than most could imagine. But she knew one thing. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't walking this road alone. Saturday came faster than Emily expected. She spent the morning pacing around her small apartment, unsure if Barron would really show up or if the gesture had simply been a fleeting act of kindness. She kept reminding herself not to expect too much. At exactly 3 p.m., there was a soft knock on her door. When she opened it, Barron was standing there holding a giant tub of popcorn and a bouquet of daisies. His trademark black jacket was gone, replaced by a simple gray sweater, and his smile was warm, almost shy. "I wasn't sure if daisies were too much," he said, holding them out awkwardly. Emily laughed, her nerves dissolving in an instant. "They're perfect. Come in." Sophie, who had been coloring on the living room floor, looked up and squealed, "Popcorn man!" She bolted across the room and wrapped her tiny arms around Barron's legs. He crouched down to her level, handing her the tub of popcorn. "For you, little lady," he said, ruffling her curls. What followed was a surprisingly normal afternoon. They watched Sophie's favorite animated movie, pausing every few minutes as Sophie insisted on pointing out her favorite scenes. Barron didn't seem to mind. In fact, he seemed genuinely invested. He asked Sophie questions and laughed at her wide-eyed explanations. For Emily, the scene felt surreal. Here was one of the most famous men in the world, sitting cross-legged on her worn-out rug, sharing popcorn with her daughter as if they'd known each other forever. But beneath her gratitude, a flicker of doubt crept in. Why would someone like him take an interest in their lives? Later, as Sophie dozed off on the couch, Emily finally asked the question that had been gnawing at her. "Why us? Why are you here?" Barron's smile faded. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a long moment before speaking. "Because I know what it's like to feel like the world's moved on without you, to feel alone." His voice cracked slightly, and Emily's heart ached at the vulnerability in his tone. He went on to share fragments of his past, losing his best friend at a young age, the unimaginable grief of losing his daughter Ava, and later her mother Jennifer. "I've spent years trying to find meaning in all the loss," he admitted. "And then sometimes, someone like Sophie comes along and reminds me that life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful." Emily felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. Barron shook his head. "Don't be. Meeting you two, it's like I found a little piece of that beauty again." The words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Emily wanted to say something, to thank him for his honesty, but she couldn't find the right words. Instead, she reached over and took his hand in hers, offering him the quiet reassurance he didn't know he needed. Over the next few months, Barron became a steady presence in their lives. He'd stop by with groceries, help Sophie with her art projects, and even encourage Emily to revisit her screenwriting dreams. Slowly but surely, he became more than a friend. But as the bond between them deepened, so did Emily's fear. Could this really last? Was Barron too good to be true, or would life's inevitable hardships pull them apart? And somewhere in the back of her mind, she wondered, was she ready to open her heart again? The months passed, and what had started as a chance encounter blossomed into something Emily could never have imagined. Barron's presence in her and Sophie's lives brought a kind of warmth she hadn't felt in years. Yet there was always a part of her that wondered if it was too good to be true. One crisp autumn evening, Barron invited Emily and Sophie to a quiet picnic in Griffith Park. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden hues over the city. Sophie ran ahead, chasing butterflies, her laughter echoing through the trees. Barron and Emily spread out a blanket near a secluded spot under a sprawling oak tree. "Do you ever think about where life is taking you?" Barron asked, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Emily glanced at him, surprised. "Every day," she admitted. "It's hard not to when life feels like it's always throwing curveballs." He nodded, looking down at his hands. "I've been thinking about that a lot lately, about how life is full of losses, but also moments like this, moments I don't want to let go of." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She looked at him, trying to read the expression in his eyes, tender but uncertain, as though he was balancing on the edge of something he wasn't sure he should say. Before she could respond, Sophie toddled back, her cheeks flushed from running. "Popcorn man," she declared, holding out a dandelion. "Make a wish." Barron took the flower and blew on it, sending the tiny seeds drifting into the breeze. "Done," he said, smiling at Sophie. "What did you wish for?" Emily asked, her voice teasing but curious. He hesitated, then turned to her, his gaze steady. "I wished for courage," Barron said quietly. Emily tilted her head. "Courage for what?" "To ask you this." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Time seemed to stop as he opened it, revealing a delicate gold ring. Simple yet breathtaking. "Emily Bennett," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You and Sophie have given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A reason to believe in love, in family, in second chances. I don't want to let that go. Will you marry me?" Emily's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled in her eyes. For a moment she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She looked down at Sophie, who was clapping her hands in delight, then back at Barron, whose eyes held both hope and vulnerability. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking. 1,000 times, yes. Barron slipped the ring onto her finger, his hand steady despite the emotions brimming in his eyes. Sophie threw herself into his lap, squealing with awe, and Barron wrapped his arms around both of them, holding them as if they were the most precious treasures in the world. But their story didn't end there. Over the weeks that followed, their engagement became a source of joy and healing, not just for them, but for everyone who knew them. Barron, once known for his quiet solitude, seemed to radiate a newfound light. He brought Emily to film sets, introducing her to people who could help her revive her screenwriting career. Emily, in turn, helped Barron open up in ways he hadn't before. They spent late nights talking about his past, his fears, and his dreams. She listened without judgment, offering him a safe space to grieve and grow. On their wedding day, a small, intimate gathering at a vineyard in Napa Valley, there wasn't a dry eye in sight. Sophie, wearing a flower crown, served as their ring bearer, proudly walking down the aisle with a tiny basket of petals. When Barron and Emily exchanged vows, their words weren't just promises. They were acknowledgments of the pain and loss that had brought them to this moment, and the love that had carried them through. "I promise to share every piece of popcorn with you," Barron said, earning laughter from the crowd. Then his voice grew serious. "And I promise to never take a single moment for granted, because you and Sophie are my everything." Emily's vows were just as heartfelt. "I never thought I'd find someone who could love me for who I am, scars and all. But you walked into our lives and showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's hard. I'll spend the rest of my life showing up for you." As they kissed, sealing their vows, the crowd erupted into cheers. But for Emily and Barron, the noise faded into the background. All that mattered was the life they were beginning together. A life built on love, resilience, and the unshakable belief that even the most broken hearts could find their way home. As Sophie tugged at Barron's hand, asking for another round of popcorn, the three of them laughed, knowing that this was just the beginning of their beautiful, imperfect, extraordinary journey.